Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and today we're here to review... No, not you. No, not you either. If only there was some games taking place in between these ones and there was a collection about it all on Switch. Ha! Wasn't that convenient? Let's dive right into it. Are you playing Pizza Tower back there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really hard.
In the Ace Attorney games, Edgeworth has always been a bit like an outdoor cat. He drops in every now and again, does his job, then disappears for weeks, sometimes months, and later on you'll find out some cool tidbit of information. He was in Europe doing important lawyer things, or chasing an Interpol lead in a deep jungle, or on a space station solving an extraterrestrial murder. And then he turns up once more at your doorstep with a cool new outfit like nothing happened. Ace Attorney Investigations is like putting a webcam on said cat to find out what he gets up to. And it turns out that most of Edgeworth's out-of-court activities involve solving murders before they even get to court. The first game in this double pack is Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth, which came out back in 2009 on the DS as a spin-off to the main series. It's set between the events of the third game, Trials and Tribulations, and the fourth game, Apollo Justice, and, we'll be honest, players will benefit from a pretty robust knowledge of at least the events of the first trilogy. Where Phoenix's adventures largely take place in court, Edgeworth seemingly prefers to do his work by investigating crime scenes and grilling suspects until he knows exactly who did it, when, and why, but the rest of it is very familiar. Even without the legality and professionalism of the court, Edgeworth is able to cross-examine witnesses, listen to testimonies, present evidence, and say "objection" a whole lot. It's invigorating to be much more hands-on with the evidence and the crimes, but at the same time, it's much more static than Phoenix's investigations. You're often trapped in one room until Edgeworth decides to move on, instead of Phoenix's more dynamic investigations that let you move between locations. But Edgeworth and friends are represented in a world with chibi versions of themselves, which arguably makes it feel more dynamic anyway. And also, they're really cute. The characters in Investigation are your usual colorful cast, each with their own memorable quirks. A character that laughs a lot, a character that growls like a tiger, a character that, has a large chest, and the requisite pun names. You'll see a lot of returning characters too, no spoilers here because it's nice to have the surprise, which is one of the reasons it's handy to have the background knowledge of the first 3 Ace Attorney games. Edgeworth also has 3 new powers up his sleeve: Little Thief, which allows him to recreate and examine crime scenes after the fact, Deduce, which lets you highlight a contradiction in the crime scene with evidence, and Logic, a Sherlock Holmesian mind palace that lets you connect 2 facts about the case to create a new conclusion. Logic is fantastic, if sometimes a little obvious, and Little Thief is a treat, albeit infrequently used, but we often struggle to know what the Deduce ability wanted us to present as evidence. Honestly though, Investigations doesn't make it quite into our top Ace Attorney games. It's a great story as always, and the introduction of Edgeworth and his sidekick's special powers is a welcome change from Phoenix's psych logs, but the overarching plot across the 5 episodes is told out of order and is sometimes a little hard to follow, and Edgeworth's contradictions are often tricky to find or to present at the right time. Compared to the long, complex cases of the third Ace Attorney game, Investigations feels more like a lot of build-up and backstory for the denouement of the 5th case rather than fully standalone mini-stories. It's a shame Investigations wasn't given more of a once-over too, as there are more grammar errors than we're used to seeing in these games, and some of the animations really struggle and hang. Overall, a good game, but not one of the best. Investigations 2 Prosecutor's Gambit is something we've been anxiously awaiting for over a decade, and we were absolutely delighted to discover at last that it picks up the Investigations mantle and improves on almost every aspect. Edgeworth is less of a cardboard cutout than before and has some fantastic moments of character development alongside several new characters, Eddie Fender, who is by far our favorite character of the new cast. He begins as a creep who wants to give everyone hugs, which gave us flashbacks to Director Hottie, but soon develops into a rich, deep character who we fell in love with. Props to the writing and localization team. Get ready for even more deep Ace Attorney lore though, because Investigations 2 is chock full of returning characters, backstory, flashbacks, and references to multiple incidents referenced by 3-letter codenames, which can get really confusing. Both games are told out of order too, so maybe get ready to take notes if you want to follow along with the overarching plot, which, as it turns out, spans both games. Technically, it spans even more since people keep mentioning DL6. If you know, you know. But once you're locked into Ace Attorney lore, Investigations 2 is easily one of the best Ace Attorney games. It paces out its twists and revelations perfectly, giving you that aha moment exactly when you need it. And the characters are so beautifully written that you feel like they're real, with unique and gorgeous animations for each that brings them to life. The only mark against it really is Edgeworth's new gimmick, Mind Chess, which is utter nonsense. It's similar to Phoenix's Cyclops, but instead of blocks, it's chess pieces that you have to explode using interrogation tactics. It's basically a convoluted dialogue tree that you have to play perfectly or you get sent back to the start, even though you've already said 80% of what's in the tree. It has its moments of brilliance, but it's largely annoying, superfluous, and weirdly written because of how much it relies on the correct answer being say nothing, which gets people to confess for some reason. There's also extras, animation galleries, a music player, concept art, and achievements, but those are really just the cherry on top on an already really tasty cake. Despite some bumps in the first game, we wholeheartedly recommend the Investigations collection, not at least because it gives us Investigations 2 at last. So in conclusion, Ace Attorney Investigations Collection is the last of the Ace Attorney Switch remakes, but certainly not the least of them. Just make sure you're up to date on Ace Attorney 1-3 first, or you'll miss out on half of the fun. The first game doesn't quite feel up to par with the series' best, but Investigation 2 certainly does and might even be one of our favorites. We'll hold it in our hearts forever. We here at Nintendo Life give Ace Attorney Investigations Collection on the Nintendo Switch a 8 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, why don't you investigate that subscribe button and give it a little click, and don't forget to check out our website nintendolife.com where you can find reviews like these but in written form. Thanks again to Kate for this fantastic review. You can find some of our works like the reviews for Apollo Justice, The Great Ace Attorney, and Ghost Trick down in the description below. Stay safe, play some Ace Attorney Investigations on the Nintendo Switch now that we finally have the second game localized, and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life, out. Eureka! Oh, it's like a Ace Attorney, and like, don't worry about it. So bad.